You need an accurate and consistent reference monitor level to get reliable results in your mixes. Here's how you do it. Hi everybody, I'm Todd and I hope you're having a great day. Engineers know that without a consistent reference monitor level, it's impossible to get balanced mixes that translate reliably. So in this video, I'm going to show you step by step how to set a reference monitor level up in your studio. Now the first step is to determine your target mix level, or the level you're going to mix at. There is an industry standard that's at -20 dB. However, it's not a hard and fast rule. A lot of mixers work between -12 and -16, myself included. The important thing is that this is the consistent level that you will do all your mixes at, because this is half of the equation that's going to allow us to get an accurate reference listening level. The next step is to determine the reference level we're going to listen at, and there are a couple of ways to do this. The first is an industry standard method based on room size, and if you look at the chart on screen, you'll see that as the room gets larger, the reference level gets louder. And this is for a few reasons, but not the least of which is that it can be fatiguing in smaller rooms if the reference level is too high. And so you need to be able to be comfortable to work for a long period of time. And so this is one way that you can do it. First thing you should notice here is that you need to get up to a pretty large control room before those reference levels get up there into the 80s. One exception you'll see here is in a Dolby Atmos environment where there are listening levels recommended for both home and professional studios. One thing you might take away from this is that with those levels being a bit higher, it tells you need a pretty large control room to mix with Atmos using speakers. Now to set up our DAW for calibration, the first thing we need to do is create an output source that's at that reference mix level we already determined. Now I'm going to use -20 for this example because of the industry standard, but again, you can use whatever you like to mix at as long as you're consistent with that. So for industry standard, we use pink noise. You typically get a pink noise generator, and you just bring this up to where you're getting -20 dB. And I can just click here and go -20, and as you'll see, the output looks right in around -20. And so that's all I need to do to then move on to the next step to go ahead and calibrate the speakers. The other way to do this, if you prefer not to use a pink noise method and you're not using the room size, would be to go ahead and use a reference track. And so once again, you would take your reference track and you would bring that up to your mix level. So I'm just going to go ahead, I'll bring this up to -20 again, like in our example here. And there we go. So that would be my level then for the reference mix that we'll use in a next step where we actually calibrate the studio monitors. Now to calibrate your studio monitors, you'll need an SPL meter like this one. Now it doesn't have to be expensive, but there are two features you need to look for. First of all, it needs to be able to take C-weighted measurements. You probably heard of A and C-weighted SPL measurements. A weighting is fine for very low levels or general background noise, but C level much more accurately represents our human hearing at higher listening levels. Second thing you want is a slow function so that it's taking the reading slowly over time. This way you're not going to get it jumping, bouncing around up and down as you're listening. Transients are important, but what we're looking for here to calibrate is a general listening level. I'll leave a link for this one in the description below. At the time of recording, I think they're about $35 US. But any SPL meter that has these two features will do. Now that we have our signal source set up in the DAW and we have our meter ready to take a C-weighted reading in slow mode, we can do the measurements. Now we're going to measure each speaker separately. The reason being we're not only going for overall level here, but we want to ensure balance from one side to the other. If we find anything, one monitor to be louder than the other, we can always dial it back or turn up the other side, whatever we need to do to get them equal. We'll do that on the monitor itself. So let's go ahead and get a signal going here. I'm going to set my tone generator to -20, turn that on. And the important thing here is I need to check the pan and make sure I'm getting the same signal on both sides. So we'll just slide it to the left, looking over at this to see the signal. And that looks about the same as when I was overall. Now I'll slide it over to the right. And again, I'm getting about the same signal level here, so that's good. We'll move it back to the left. I'll switch over to the camera behind me so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to hold the meter in the sweet spot, and then I'm going to start bringing up the level with my monitor controller until I get to the target level. And you'll do this based on what the size of your room so that you get the level that's appropriate. And once I hit the target level, I'll pan over to the right. And what I'm doing is I'm looking for them to be the same. So I want to have the same reading on both sides. Mine are, so I don't have to make any changes. If you find a difference, again, go to the monitor, adjust it, take the reading again. Now, if you prefer to do this with a mix instead of the pink noise, the procedure is really the same. We need to do both sides. And here it's important that the reference mix you're using is balanced side to side. So let's just check that first. Playback. And all the way over to the left. And all the way to the right. And in this case, my reference mix is in place, so I'll go ahead and slide it back to the left, switch over again to the camera behind me so you can see what's going on, and I'll start bringing the level up until I get to the target. Once I reach the target, I'll go back to the right. And once again, mine are in balance, so I don't have to make any adjustments. If there was a difference from one side to the other, I'd adjust that on the monitor to make it the same as the other side. Whichever one's lower, I bring up a little bit. Whichever one's higher, I might bring down a little bit. In the end, we just want them to be exactly the same. But after that, it's important to go back to pink noise at that same level, take a measurement, so if you ever need to go back and recalibrate, you can do that more accurately. And take my measurement. And so now the important thing is to mark the setting on your monitor controller or the volume dial on your audio interface so that you can set it here every time you go to mix. And now when you're ready to mix at your reference monitor level, you simply make sure that you're mixing to the target level. So again, in this example, I use -20, but most people I find go between about -12 and -16, including myself. And also set your monitor level controller or the dial on your interface to this point that we recorded that gives us the desired level output. This way you'll have a consistent monitor level every time you mix. Now when it comes to headphones, it's difficult to measure sound pressure level without specialized equipment in your studio. And so if I'm working in headphones only, I'll start the playback and then I'll bring the level up to be where it is that I'm used to listening at. So in other words, the level that I want to mix at moving forward. I'll then mark that setting and use that every time that I go to mix. Now, many of us mix on both studio monitors and headphones, whether it happens in your studio control room or if you take your work on the road with you. And so what I recommend is to first set your reference level on the studio monitors and then go ahead and A/B that with your headphones. I'll start the playback, bring my studio monitors up to the level that I have set for mixing so that I get used to it, and then I'll switch to headphones. And I'll go back to my monitors, turn them down, put the headphones back on, and I'll repeat those steps until I'm satisfied that the headphone level and monitor level is the same, and I'll record the settings for the headphone level. Now, another situation that comes up is where you have multiple sets of studio monitors, and this happens a lot in larger control rooms where you might have a set of near-field monitors that you mix on all the time. And then you also have midfields or far-field monitors that you use for evaluating stereo image and or for playback for artists and guests. Now in this situation, if you're using it for mixing, you need to have them calibrated to the same reference level. Otherwise, what sounds one way on the far fields might sound completely out of balance on the near fields and vice versa. And so often you have to have multiple calibrations for those larger monitors. Perhaps you have one that you use for comparing mixes with the near fields, and then another one that you use for playback for guests. Now, another topic that comes up is should we calibrate our studio monitors or headphones using EQ? I'll have more videos on this coming up, so make sure you're subscribed if this is something you're interested in. As always, I appreciate you joining me today. Check out one of the videos on the screen below for more studio tips, and I'll see you next time.